Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first of 3 information sessions for parents and guardians of Our Lady of Mercy School for Young Women. My name is Dave Caro. I am the Vice President for External Affairs here at Mercy. Our leadership team has designed these sessions to complement the school reentry information that has already been shared with all of you via email and on the Mercy website. Joining me here today is a panel of experts, both Mercy staff as well as community leaders who have been partnering with Mercy for several months as we prepare to safely bring your daughters back to school in September. Before we get into this session, I would like to start with a prayer. It is one that we say often before our COVID task force meetings, and it seems especially appropriate today. It is a prayer for our community. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Good and gracious God, we pray for hope and healing for our world. Bless our students and their families, particularly in this moment. With all the uncertainty and anxiety of these times, help us stay focused on the mission that unites us, the education of our young people as the leaders of our world needs. As we look ahead to a challenging time, we are connected in purpose, in hope, and in the faith that the world will be a better place because of our Mercy students. As we plan for the reopening of Our Lady of Mercy School for Young Women, give each of us wisdom and knowledge, courage and compassion, and the eyes to see the challenges and opportunities before us. May we recognize that although we do not know what the future holds, we know that you hold the future. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. We want to thank all of you who submitted questions either directly to us via email or through the Google form we shared with you. We reviewed each and every question, comment, and concern that you all had. And while we may not address each specific question over the next 60 minutes here in this session, we are using your input to aid in our decision-making and to develop future communications. We have broken down this session into 4 segments: academics, student life, health and safety, and facilities. We grouped your questions into one of these segments. Some of you may have additional questions, or perhaps you haven't had the opportunity to submit a question yet. You will find a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen that you can use to submit a question at any time during the session. We have moderators who will review the questions and see where they fit into the questions already asked. If there is a question that touches on an area we haven't discussed, we'll try to answer it before our time is up at 9 a.m. On a side note, we will be recording this information session. We want to thank you for joining us today. And more importantly, we want to thank you for your support of Mercy, for your understanding of the difficulties we all face as we safely return to school, and for the faith you have in us to educate your daughters. I would like to now introduce Mercy President Pam Baker, class of 1974, and parent of a 2012 Mercy graduate. Pam?
Good morning, everyone. Dave, thank you very much for getting this organized and getting us all kicked off this morning. As Dave mentioned, we're very grateful that you're able to join us for the first of these 3 town hall sessions that we are holding today and tomorrow. I do also want to make sure, and I hope, that you and your families had been able to enjoy part of this summer as best as possible in these bizarre COVID world that we're living in. When we closed the doors to Mercy back in March, we sure hoped that when we reopened the doors, the world would be back to normal. Sadly, that's not the case, but open we must and open we will. And the resilience of all of the members of the Circle of Mercy allow us to move forward. One of the most important things I want to announce this morning is that we have officially, as of 5 p.m. last night, signed a lease with St. Thomas More for their space on East Avenue. The space that we all commonly have known as Sienna is now being called Mercy East. And it will be the home of Dr. Diodato and her Wildflowers 6th, 7th, and 8th grade Mercy girls, while we continue to face our COVID-19 struggle. As we've mentioned to you in previous communications, the space allows us to hold classes 5 days a week in the middle school in a safe environment. And today, while we may not be rolling out all the details, Dr. Diodato will be talking about it a little bit at the end of this meeting. And before we begin this morning's meeting, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge and thank all the people who have been involved in our team over this summer to get us to where we are today. I don't want to begin to individually call out names because I know I'll forget somebody, but I clearly want to thank our principal, Dr. Marty Kilbridge, for leading us through the academic morass that we have been facing and that we are where we are today because of him, his organization, and his team. So thanks, Marty. In addition, I'm sure you've also been following our tireless work of our COVID reentry team and our task force led by my friend, Dr. Jim Maxwell, and his subcommittee chairs, Dr. Colleen Davis on health and safety, Rich Laudisi on campus facilities, Sue Moore for finance, and Marty on academics, and the multitudes of people who served on their subcommittees. These subcommittees had met diligently and tirelessly since the spring to ensure to the best of our ability the safety of our students, our faculty, and our staff. As we do reenter the school on the 8th, the reentry task force will then morph into what we are calling our COVID response task force. Jim will continue to serve as our chair, and that will be the time that we will be faced with implementing our policies, our procedures, and the things that we have worked so hard on this summer. So now we move ahead. I have spent part of my summer, when I've had a few moments, reading Sister Mary Sullivan's amazing biography of Catherine McAuley, the foundress of the Sisters of Mercy. The book is called The Path of Mercy. It inspired me greatly. When the going got tough this summer, I was able to take a moment, sit back, and think about what 1827 must have been like when Catherine McAuley opened her first institute. In fact, her anniversary of opening her institute is September 24th, not far after we open our doors, and we do celebrate Mercy Day at our school. But what hit me harder is 5 years after she opened her door in 1832, the horrendous cholera epidemic hit Ireland. Catherine and her sisters persevered. They showed resilience. They tended the needy. They tended their institute, and they moved forward. Now, 188 years later, we as a community face the COVID crisis. We are now joined together and will face the challenges ahead. But when we do, we should look to the legacy of Catherine McAuley and lean on her words. And this is Catherine's quote that I'd like to read today. We have one solid comfort amidst this tripping about. Our hearts can always be in the same space, and that is centered on God, for whom we go forward or stay back. So everybody, thanks for joining us this morning. There's lots of information coming at you. Stay Mercy strong. And Marty, I hand it off to you.
Thanks, Pam. Good morning, everyone. I am pleased to have this opportunity to explain our reopening plan and to answer many of the salient questions that you have sent in. Our work in preparing for the fall has been guided by two principles: ensuring the highest quality education for our girls while preserving the health of the Mercy community. With these often competing principles in mind, we move forward with a deliberate process, incorporating survey results, state guidance, expert advice, and stakeholder representation on committees to arrive at a plan that makes the best of the severe constraints we face. We are confident that the academic, social, and safety measures we have been putting into place will serve our girls, our faculty, and our community well. Mercy will continue to be a leader in providing an outstanding education in turbulent times. We are safely leading the way. Over the past several months and in the days since we published our plan, we have received many questions and suggestions. Some of these we have incorporated into our planning. Some of them point to the need for more complete explanations. I hope that today's session will answer some of the more frequent questions we have been asked. We are living in uncertain times. Mercy, even as it adapts to circumstances, will continue to serve as a safe place for our girls to grow into the young women who will serve as leaders through the challenges of tomorrow. So let us turn to the questions that have been most asked. Dave, can you start us off?
I sure can, Dr. Kilbridge, thank you. We are going to start off in the academics segment. of today's session, and I'm going to throw it right back to you, Dr. Kilbridge, with the first question. I am concerned about dropping Wednesdays from the instructional calendar. Can you explain the purpose of this and how you will ensure that our daughter is prepared for college?
Yes, this concern has been echoed by others in our community. It's important to note that with our HyFlex Learning Model, we are not diminishing our academic standards. Our teachers follow a curriculum map that lays out academic objectives, assessments, and unit plans for the entire year, and there will be no shortcuts. Wednesdays are not days off for the high school. I want to make sure that everyone is aware of that. Students and teachers will be engaged in both academic and culture building work. These days may not be cycle days with direct instruction, but students will continue to learn and grow. High school teachers may use these days to conference with students or meet with small groups as needed, and students will use the time to complete assignments. Even leaving aside Wednesdays, our high school students will have the same amount of instructional time as they normally would. It is just divided slightly differently. We have extended the school year by a week. We have moved many of our non-instructional days, such as professional development days, Arts Fest, and other events, from Fridays to Wednesdays. And we've lengthened the school day by 19 minutes. In terms of instruction, our HyFlex plan took away only 6 calendar days, but by adding about 19 minutes to each day, we have actually gained those 6 days back. In the net hours of direct instruction are about the same this year as they would be in any typical year. So the subsequent question is, why are we making these changes at all? First, we needed to create a schedule that would allow us to move instantly from HyFlex model to fully remote model that we did in the spring. We need to be able to do that instantly. In a day, we can seamlessly move from the program we have had in place to the program that we had in place, which was so widely admired, providing rigorous instruction while offering a midweek break to alleviate the toll an unrelenting online experience can have on teachers and students. Second, we needed to ensure that our students experience the Mercy community and the bonds of sisterhood that make Mercy special. Any student can tell you that one of the most significant losses they experienced in the spring was the connection to their classmates. Since we have divided each grade by cohorts, Wednesdays give us a chance to bring entire grade levels back together again on campus and celebrate some of the most cherished events at the same time. For example, our seniors will be gathering together on September 23rd to celebrate their delayed junior ring ceremony. A Mercy education is far more than the curriculum that the students experience in the classroom. It is the relationships our girls form in the community they experience. Wednesdays provide them with this opportunity.
Dr. Kilbridge, thank you. Another question right back at you, please. How long does Mercy expect to follow this schedule? And what metrics will you use to determine when to switch to either completely remote or completely in-person learning?
Yes, that's a good question. We don't know the progression of the disease or the timetable when a vaccine will be available. We can only rely on state and local authorities for guidance. The governor has already issued one piece of guidance. Should the infection rate for our region rise to 5% over a 7-day period, all schools in the region will close, and we are in the Finger Lakes region. But our COVID response team, led by Dr. Jim Maxwell and our coronavirus coordination officer, Anthony Yandak, will not only monitor official guidance and work with the Monroe County Department of Public Health, but they will also be tracking cases internal to Mercy. Anthony and Dr. Maxwell will speak about this a little bit later on. We will continually reevaluate the effectiveness of our program and make changes deemed necessary by the COVID response team. However, we are prepared to follow this plan throughout the year, and we're confident that no matter what, a Mercy education will prepare our girls to be pioneers of change.
Thank you, Dr. Kilbridge. We're going to move forward with the next question, but we're going to throw it over to Mrs. Horn, Mercy's Dean of Academics. Mrs. Horn, when my daughter is learning from home, will she experience scheduled class time, or will information be pre-recorded and assignments posted for students to work on their own time?
Good morning, everybody. Unlike the hybrid models we have seen posted by local school districts, Mercy's HyFlex model has students receiving synchronous, real-time instruction while at home, whether their cohort is at home or they have chosen fully remote learning. This was a hallmark of our spring academic program, and we intend to continue with this successful approach. And just a reminder, for those families who wish to keep their daughters home for remote instruction, please be sure to fill out the form either on Mercy Link for the high school or the Google form for middle school families.
Mrs. Horn, we're going to stay with you for the next question. If my child starts with the HyFlex model, can she switch to fully online or vice versa?
Yes, at the 5-week mark, we will be reaching out to all families to confirm their current status and elicit requests for a change, which can be implemented within days. You are not locked into a semester of remote or in-person instruction. I might add that those students who chose online learning will have the full complement of course offerings for which they registered, unlike what we have seen in public school plans.
Dr. Kilbridge, we're going to toss it back to you for the next question. What happens if a student needs to stay home unexpectedly?
Yeah, all our classes will be provided live video conferencing. So we anticipate, based on the progression of this disease, that over the course of the next several months, Mercy girls will find themselves needing to be quarantined because of exposure to someone who may have been tested positive. So we do not want them to lose any instructional time under those circumstances. So this will be true for students whether they are in the middle school or the high school. Students who are sick must be reported as an absence due to illness, but if they wish, they may continue to participate in class remotely.
And Dr. Kilbridge, why couldn't the high school move to the alternate location to allow for 5 days per week in-person instruction instead of the middle school?
Well, the alternate location, which you now know, is the former Siena Catholic Academy, where I was pleased to be principal for 4 years prior to coming to Mercy, and we are calling Mercy East. It offers larger classrooms, but it doesn't have the sufficient number of classrooms to accommodate our high school. Now, additionally, from a developmental perspective, middle school students generally have less self-discipline to participate in online learning successfully. We also recognize that parents of middle schoolers are likely to be more concerned about leaving their children at home than the parents of high school students. We are making use of the space left behind in the Macaulay wing where the middle school has been located. We are moving our world languages classrooms up from the ground level to the first floor to provide greater ventilation. And we are moving some of our high school classes over to that wing to alleviate the pressure on classrooms so that those that are shared less frequently.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Horn, we're going to toss it back to you. How will science labs work when half of the students are at home? If half the class participates in lab while their cohort is at school, will the other cohort be doing independent work at home?
So we have ordered laboratory simulation software that allows science teachers to continue engaging their students in inquiry-based investigations when hands-on experiences are not possible. Science teachers will use their judgment in the best way to group students to ensure that all students are developing the laboratory skills that are essential to a quality science instruction.
Thank you, Mrs. Horn. We are going to switch gears to the second segment that we've grouped questions in, and that is student life. Now, Mrs. Whipple, our Dean of Student Life, unfortunately can't be with us this morning, so we will have other panelists answer the student life questions. And we're going to go back to Dr. Kilbridge for the first question. Will there be times or places students will not wear masks aside from eating? How will you manage the lunchroom? If you could unmute yourself, Dr. Kilbridge.
I apologize. I'm struggling through multiple screens here. I am, as Mr. Caro explained a little bit earlier, we are trying to monitor questions as they come in. So I'm trying to both do that and respond to the questions as they come along. So so please bear with me as I juggle. So as far as the lunches go and the mask breaks, because that is implied in this question, we are currently exploring opportunities for students to have mask breaks while on campus. And there are some outdoor activities that may be conducted without the use of masks, as long as the girls are practicing social distancing. In any case, students and staff must have masks on and with them at all times. As for lunches, seating in the cafeteria in the high school will resemble that of the classrooms. The tables have been replaced with desks that are arranged in rows with all the students facing the same direction and 6-foot distancing between the desks. Students in the middle school will be eating their lunch in the classrooms where desks are prearranged to meet social distancing requirements. Lunches will be pre-ordered, served in individual portions, and will be prepaid. Lunches will be ordered and can be ordered up until 8:15 on the morning of the same day, but you'll be able to order as early as a week in advance. Students may always bring their own lunches from home. However, we do not have access to microwaves in the cafeteria.
Thank you, Dr. Kilbridge. Dr. Diodato, the Dean of our Mercy Middle School, you will provide a brief update, as Mrs. Baker mentioned earlier, on the middle school later in the session. But for now, can you answer, how will lunch be offered?
Yes, good morning, everybody. Boxed lunches will be available for order up to a week in advance through our online app. In the high school, they will be available for pickup in the cafeteria during lunch period, and students will eat in the cafeteria or gallery. In the middle school, lunches will be delivered to classrooms where students will also eat their lunches. We hope students in the middle school will be able to go outside for a mask break during their lunch period. We are still finalizing this decision. If a student forgets her lunch, she will still be able to place an order online up until 8:15 in the morning the same day.
Thank you, Dr. Diodato. Dr. Kilbridge, back to you. Are students allowed to stay after school to work? Where will they be for advisement? Will there be a senior lounge? Will common areas be monitored before school, during advisement, and after school, especially with the library closed?
We are minimizing social gatherings and unsupervised time. Students will be admitted into the building beginning at 7:15 and will report directly to their homerooms after successfully going through the check-in and screening process. Students are not permitted to stay after school. All after-school activities are currently on hold. Students are dismissed at 3 p.m. and must leave campus. For advisement, students will report back to homeroom or will be released outdoors for a mask break to designated areas. The senior lounge and other common gathering spaces are closed. For study halls, students will remain in their assigned rooms. The cafeteria will be open only during lunch blocks. Now, I also saw that another question came in kind of related to this, which was, is the extra 19 minutes per day that we are working in, does that apply to the middle school as well? And it does. The middle school and the high school will be following the same daily schedule. That is partly because our teachers teach both in the high school and the middle school, and some of our students are taking advanced classes such as geometry, and they need to be on the same schedule. So the middle school is gaining 19 minutes per day as well.
Thank you, Dr. Kilbridge. At this time, I would like to introduce Mr. Yandek, Mercy's athletic director, who serves as Mercy's coronavirus coordination officer on the COVID-19 response team. Mr. Yandek does not make medical decisions. Rather, he is responsible for the overall coordination and enforcement of Mercy's coronavirus policies and procedures. He also serves as a point of contact for students, faculty, and staff for information relating to Mercy's coronavirus plans and procedures. Mr. Yandek will answer questions related to facilities in just a few minutes, but we would like for him to put on his athletic director hat now and answer, what is happening with sports?
Thank you, Dave, and good morning, everyone. So this question was part of the FAQ document that we shared with you recently, but many parents and student athletes still have questions, obviously. Sports seasons are dictated by New York State and the New York State Public High School Athletic Association. And their plan is to start fall sports on September 21st with a backup plan of pushing all 3 seasons into 2021. If it is determined that we cannot move forward with a fall season at this time, then we are expecting, if we cannot move forward with a fall season at this time, all of the seasons will be played in 2021. We are expecting further communication from Albany on this matter at the beginning of next week, so please stay tuned for that. In the meantime, Mercy's athletic department is preparing to start all levels of competition on September 21st. We will post updates to the Mercy Athletic website as we receive them, and we'll plan for organizational meetings to be held prior to the start of the season.
Thank you, Mr. Yandek. Dr. Kilbridge, same question to you, but for extracurricular activities. What's happening with them?
Yes, as for extracurricular activities, most clubs are currently on pause to start the school year, but there are a few exceptions, such as speech and debate, which will begin virtually. We expect to reintroduce clubs and extracurricular activities when we are confident that the safety measures that we have put in place are having the effect that we want of suppressing the spread of the coronavirus.
Thank you, Dr. Kilbridge. Dr. Diodato, let's throw a question your way here. Why does my daughter need to wear her Mercy shirt while learning online at home?
Hello again. Students either learning remotely or on campus are considered in class while instruction is being given. Creating a learning environment at home that is supportive of engaged learning is essential. Therefore, students are expected to be in uniform at home just as if they were on campus. In an effort to allow for a bit more comfort, at-home learning will only require the student to wear the uniform polo. Comfortable bottoms are permitted while at home.
And we're going to stay with you, Dr. Diodato, for the next question. Why can't my daughter wear her own face mask? What if the school-provided mask doesn't fit?
Not only are the masks an essential part of helping to protect our school community against infection, but they are also a required part of our school dress code this year. We will be providing each member of the student body and faculty with 3 different masks as part of the dress code this year. All 3 types have been evaluated for comfort and effectiveness, although some may prove to be a student's favorite. We are exploring options to have more school-approved masks available for purchase through the school bookstore.
Dr. Diodato, what happens if my daughter forgets her mask?
Mercy has disposable single-use masks available for students and staff in case a mask is forgotten, lost, or becomes soiled during the school day. Disposable masks will be available in the gallery, nurses station, and at the main office.
Thank you, Dr. D. Mrs. Horn, back to you for the next question. With regards to the IT modules, safety training, and school ID photographs, can those who are learning remotely still participate and attend?
Yes, most safety trainings will be distributed in video links for student review and will be a part of the opening days of school in which remote learners will participate. All students will have an ID picture taken within the first few days of school. Remote learners will receive information on how to submit a picture electronically for their ID. Students will be required to wear their student ID on a lanyard provided as part of the uniform while on campus.
Thank you, Mrs. Horn. As we head into the health and safety segment of today's information session, we will defer several questions to Dr. Jim Maxwell, Clinical Assistant Professor in the Department of Neurosurgery at the University of Rochester Medical Center and Chief of Neurosurgery at Rochester General Hospital. Dr. Maxwell is also Mercy's COVID-19 Reentry Task Force Chair, as well as Chair of the Response Team, and he is also the parent of 2 Mercy graduates. Joining him is Dr. Colleen Davis, Chief of Pediatric Emergency Department at the University of Rochester Golisano Children's Hospital and a member of Mercy's Board of Trustees and COVID Task Force. She is also a parent of 3 Mercy graduates. All medical decisions related to COVID and the safety of our students and faculty and staff during this time have been and will continue to be made in consultation with Dr. Maxwell and Dr. Davis. So Dr. Maxwell, let me start with you. What will it take for the school to shut down and go to remote learning only?
Good morning. Thank you, Dave, and thank you to the Circle of Mercy for the privilege of adding my help to this effort in these very unsettled times. What would it take for the school to shut down? We are working on a matrix that will guide us, but the members of the response team recognize there are multiple variables that would determine if and when the school would need to be shut down. A decision such as this would require corroboration with the Monroe County Department of Health and would have to take into consideration the uniqueness of Mercy, our academic programs, and our facilities.
Dr. Maxwell, another question for you. What happens if we get a case of COVID in our school community?
If a member of the Mercy faculty, staff, or student body were to test positive, the school would be required by the Monroe County Department of Health to close for at least 24 hours for disinfection to take place. During this time, we will work closely with the Monroe County Department of Health to conduct contact tracing. The extent of the contact tracing, recommendations from the county department, and variables considered by our response team would factor into a decision how long the school would remain closed.
Dr. Davis, we're going to jump over to you now for the next question. Could students, faculty, or staff wear a face shield instead of a mask?
Good morning, everyone. Faculty, staff, and students will be required to wear a mask while they are on campus at all times, except when they're eating or on a scheduled mask break. Face shields can be worn in addition to a mask, but they cannot be worn as a replacement. Teachers are able to remove their masks as long as they remain behind the plexiglass shield that's been provided in every single classroom. Otherwise, teachers will need to wear their masks as well.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Mr. Yandak, we're going to jump to you. What happens if a student or faculty member develops symptoms while on campus?
A faculty member who develops symptoms while on campus will immediately be sent home. He or she will be required to see a healthcare professional and obtain a COVID test before being permitted to return to campus. A student who develops symptoms while on campus will immediately be isolated until a parent, guardian, or responsible adult can pick her up from campus. She will then be required to see a healthcare professional and obtain a COVID test and experience symptom resolution before being permitted to return to campus.
Dr. Maxwell, question for you. What happens if a student or faculty member tests positive for COVID-19? Dr. Maxwell, could you unmute? Thank you, sir.
Sorry. The faculty, staff, and students experiencing symptoms of COVID-19 must report these symptoms to the online health assessment app or to the coronavirus coordination officer directly. She or he will be required to see a healthcare provider and obtain a COVID test. If the test comes back negative, The faculty, staff, or student body member will be able to return to campus after 72 hours of being symptom-free without the use of medication. If the test comes back positive, the Monroe County Department of Public Health will place the student or staff member in isolation and begin the contact tracing process. The school will shut down for 24 hours for disinfecting and investigation of contact tracing. This information will help the COVID response team, in coordination with local health officials, determine which students and faculty would need to be placed into quarantine and the length of time the school would need to remain closed. Generally, 10 to 14 days is required for a quarantine period.
Dr. Maxwell, before you go, will teachers and students need to be tested before returning to school?
No. Current guidance does not require students or staff members or faculty to be tested for COVID-19 prior to the start of the school year. However, this could potentially change with new directives from the governor's office.
Thank you, Dr. Maxwell. Mr. Yandek, how will students be admitted to campus? Will daily temperature screening be required?
All faculty, students, and staff who plan to enter the campus must complete a daily health screening. As part of the screening process, students, faculty, and staff are required to check their own temperature in addition to responding to a series of questions relating to COVID-19 symptoms, travel restrictions, and contact tracing. This should be done before leaving home for campus. Proof of a past screening in either electronic or paper form will be required at the school entrance. If a student, faculty, or staff member forgets to take the screening or cannot provide proof of a past health screening when they arrive, they will be screened immediately. A student, faculty, or staff member who fails a health screening will be immediately sent home, or in the case of a student, sequestered in our supervised isolation room until a responsible adult can pick her up from campus. The student, faculty, or staff member will be required to see a healthcare professional and obtain a COVID-19 test before returning to school.
Mr. Yandek, but why aren't temperatures being taken at the door?
So as previously mentioned, as part of the screening process, everyone is required to check their own temperature. This is consistent with the guidance we've received from the New York State Department of Health and the best practices developed for students who are arriving on campus by local district busing. We have confidence in our faculty and students in presenting themselves honestly and answering the daily health screening questions, and we trust that the members of the Mercy community are informed of the risk and liability associated with the screening process.
Thank you, Mr. Yandek. Dr. Davis, question for you, please. What if my daughter just develops a headache at school, which can occur frequently? How can it be characterized as a symptom of COVID as opposed to just a tension headache?
Students, faculty, or staff that are experiencing any of the symptoms of COVID-19 must report their symptoms through the online health assessment app or to the coronavirus coordination officer directly. She or he will be required to see their healthcare provider and obtain a COVID-19 test. If the test comes back negative, the student, faculty, or staff member will be able to return to campus after 72 hours of being symptom-free without the use of medication. During the time that they are away, they would still be able to participate in online learning at home. We are still bound by the current state guidelines that will require a negative COVID test before students and staff can return to school. Local and state pediatric leaders are working with the Department of Health and the New York State Education Department to amend the guidelines appropriately and as deemed necessary. If changes are made to this guidance, we will be sure to communicate them to our full community at Mercy as soon as possible.
Dr. Davis, a follow-up question. My daughter has allergies, which mirror many of the symptoms of COVID. Will she be expected to be quarantined or get tested?
No, if a student or faculty member develops a symptom of COVID, but that symptom can be attributed to a chronic pre-existing health condition, they do not need to be isolated and sent home. However, that chronic health condition must be documented in writing by their physician and be on file with both our student school nurse, and with our coronavirus coordination officer.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Folks, we're going to shift over to the facilities segment now of the information session, and we're going to ask Mr. Yandek to answer a lot of these questions. Mr. Yandek, Mercy indicated there will be no visitors to the school, including parents, unless there are extenuating circumstances. What does this mean? What happens if my daughter forgets her lunch, device, gym clothes, etc.?
To start the school year, we have adopted a restricted visitor policy that will allow only essential visitors onto campus, such as first responders and safety team members. Student forgotten items, such as lunches or homework, will need to remain at home or in the car. The only exception to this would be medicines, for which a parent would need to call the main office in advance to set up a drop-off time. And as previously mentioned, if forgotten, lunch can still be ordered from the cafeteria each morning.
And so, Mr. Yandek, will students and teachers be required to clean their own desks between classes?
Yes, Mercy will provide appropriate cleaning items as well as guidance for cleaning workspaces. Guidance will be posted in each classroom for teachers and students. And the expectation is that they will clean their own desk or workspaces before and after each class. High traffic areas and frequently touched items throughout the school will be cleaned regularly by members of Mercy's cleaning crew.
Mr. Yandek, still coming at you with questions here. Will there be a set of guidelines and training for what teachers and students can and cannot do to mitigate risk?
So again, yes, we will be providing training to students and staff on practices that can best reduce the spread of germs. Signage will also be placed throughout the facilities to remind students, faculty, and staff of these practices. We also plan to have informational and instructional materials, including videos, available to families as soon as possible. Students and their parents or guardians, as well as staff members, may be required to affirm that they have viewed these materials in preparation for the opening of the school year.
And Mr. Yandek, has there been an evaluation of the HVAC systems at the Blossom Road location and the potential new middle school location? What measures are being taken at both locations to ensure the safest ventilation possible, and has all of this been fully evaluated?
So much of the Mercy building on Blossom Road has no air conditioning and is heated by radiant heat. The HVAC system in the Dismas Center for the Performing Arts and the Bonsignor Athletic Complex uses MERV 11 air filters, which meet New York state standards. Mercy East has recently been upgraded with MERV 11 filters as well. Guidance from state and federal agencies is that natural ventilation is preferable to recycled air. So to the extent possible, especially as weather conditions permit, we will keep windows open in classrooms. We'll keep doors open throughout the facilities as much as possible as well.
Mr. Yandek, thank you very much. That concludes the pre-prepared answers that we pulled together from the questions that had been submitted, but we had been, as we mentioned earlier, we have been collecting questions from folks throughout the session here, and we have a little bit more time, which we budgeted for, and we want to begin to answer some of those questions. So Dr. Kilbridge, if you could please answer, when will full details, specific plans and events for Wednesdays be completed and final details communicated to parents? And at what interval, and how will you assess these days and parent satisfaction?
We have a culture and climate subcommittee run by Dana Whipple, our Dean of Student Life. She's working with a group of students and teachers to develop programming for Wednesdays. We hope that we will be able to publish those. As I said earlier, June 23rd is the junior ring ceremony for our current seniors. We will be having plans laid out for the entire semester in advance. Some things that we already know are moved to Wednesdays are things such as our testing day in mid-October and some other events. So we will be publishing those, and those will be on our website, on our Google Calendar. and we will be informing families in regular updates regarding our Wednesday programming.
Dr. Kilbridge, speaking of Wednesdays, will busing be available on Wednesdays?
Yes, it will be available. We are working right now with the districts on this and a number of other issues related to Mercy East in particular. But we expect to have busing every day of the week. We will be, depending on the district, as you may know, we have 35 to 40 districts that bus their students to Mercy. We need to make arrangements with them to ensure that the cohorts are being met. Some districts don't want to know what cohorts, what students are in what cohort, and they are just going to be stopping by your houses just on a regular basis every day. In some cases, they want to know specifics. So it's a complicated process, but Mrs. Whipple has long experience with this, and she's doing a wonderful job, and she's going to be communicating with the districts regarding these busing plans.
Thank you, Dr. Kilbridge. I'm going to stick with you here. If the number of students who opt to do distance learning is large, could you allow those students who prefer in-person learning to attend more than 2 days per week?
Well, that would be wonderful. We would have to know that we had a significant number of families committing to remote learning. Unfortunately, at this point, we have only about 10 families that have committed to remote learning. We can guarantee that they will be getting an excellent education. I wanted to reemphasize what we said earlier. Our HyFlex model is distinct from the public school hybrid models, in which students are coming in for 2 days a week of instruction, direct instruction, and then basically doing packets at home. Our families, our girls, will be experiencing direct instruction 4 days a week in the high school and 5 days a week in the middle school, whether they are in school or not.
Another question that came in, will students have lockers this year? Dr. Kilbridge.
Yes, but as you can imagine, that's a problematic issue. We don't want girls congregating in the hallways, and that happens to be one of the most popular places to hang out is by their lockers. So we are restricting access to the lockers. Students will have access to lockers at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day to drop off coats or boots or their lunches, but throughout the day, they won't have access to the lockers. In fact, in the high school, we are not distributing locks for the lockers, so students should not expect to have those items that they store there secure. So please don't have your daughters bring in valuable items that they would want to put in the lockers.
All right, Dr. Kilbridge, one more question for you. Will there be a nurse located at Mercy East?
Yes, we will have a nurse there. We've already looked at the space and created a, as Mr. Yandek may have explained a little bit earlier, we need to have isolation spaces. So we have a general nursing station and an isolation space for any student who or faculty member who might be exhibiting COVID symptoms. So we are establishing a larger nursing space at the former Sienna property, the Mercy East location, and we will have a nurse full-time and an attendant.
All right. Dr. Diodato, a question to you, please. How will non-compliance with mask regulations be managed?
Let's see here. Students must wear their masks all the time. It is required for entry into our building. If a student does not have a mask on or is refusing to wear their mask during the day, they will see Mrs. Whipple or myself, and we will have conversations with the student because it affects the health of our community. So all students must wear their mask, and if they're refusing, they must go home.
All right, thank you, Dr. D. Mrs. Horn, a question came in. Will students be able to use school art supplies if they wipe it down after use, like markers, scissors, glue bottles, etc.?
Students may be expected to purchase some art supplies for their personal use. There are updated supply lists that are posted on the start of school page on our website. I also want to note that we suggest students bring their own bottles of hand sanitizers for their personal use. We will be encouraging all teachers and students to do thorough hand washing throughout the day and make use of the hand sanitizing stations throughout the building.
Thank you, Mrs. Horn. We've got one more question for you in a minute here. Dr. Kilbridge, though, first, will the girls have to be on camera throughout the entire school day?
Yes, active engagement in class is essential to a Mercy education, so students will be required to be on camera while participating in class remotely. We are developing an online etiquette document that we will be sharing out a little bit later. I would also answer a question that came up that I see, and we didn't have a chance to share that with you, Mr. Carroll, but someone was asking, the hallways in the school, and especially in the Macaulay wing, are often tight and don't permit social distancing. Are there precautions in place for passing times between classes? We are planning on a traffic flow for within the buildings to limit the amount of contact with students or between students. Ideally, as we have in the high school, we have a directional flow that is one direction. In Mercy East, we have one main corridor. We cannot do that, but we will be dividing the hallways into directional flow to ensure that girls are not encountering each other physically, even though they are breathing from the same space. And there's only so much that we can do, but we are going to be ensuring that the girls are safe as much as possible and using directional signage to help with that.
Great, thank you, Dr. Kilbridge. Mrs. Horn, as promised, a question here came in that you can answer here. Will there be a parent mini schedule night to meet our daughters' teachers and go through their schedule as in years past? And if yes, will that be in person or remote?
Yes, that is an important night, and we are working on alternative plans for that event, which is scheduled for October 7th. I should also add that the academic calendar has been posted on our website, and most of the community events that are on there will be held virtually.
Dr. Kilbridge, it looks like the moderators have done a great job here and have compiled a few more questions that came in during this session. Could I ask you to answer a few before we end tonight?
Sure. I've been actively copying as many as I could into my document here, so I will ask the questions and answer them myself. One question: hi, my daughter is very nervous about the new space. Are you planning a visit of the new space before the first day of school? Thank you, middle school student. All students will begin their experience together with a week of orientation on September 8th. All of our middle school students, whether they are new to the school or have been at Mercy for a while, will be new to this new space, and Dr. Diodato will be doing a wonderful job of welcoming them in and making that whole first week of school a wonderful orienting experience. The next question: when will full details, specific plans, events for Wednesdays be completed and final details communicated to parents? And at what interval and how will you assess these days and parent satisfaction? Well, we are working on the details of our Wednesdays. We have a Culture and Climate Subcommittee that's led by Mrs. Whipple, looking at all the Wednesdays that we have throughout the year. Now, many of them are already devoted to specific things. We have a Wednesday in the middle of October that is a testing day, and a motto day for the seniors to work on their motto projects. There are a number of motto days sprinkled throughout the year. So we have some dates that are open and some dates that are not, but the Culture and Climate Committee is going to be working to develop that. They will let everyone know the schedule of those events as they come up. Hopefully we will have a plan for the entire year, but to be safe, we're going to be looking at it quarter to quarter. Another question that came up is, will busing be available on Wednesdays, and will we contact districts about Mercy East and the busing? Yes, we are in communication with the districts to arrange busing, and busing will be available on Wednesdays for the middle school and for the high school for events as they come up. Will students have lockers this year? Yes, the students will have lockers, and I alluded to this a little bit earlier with one of the questions that have been asked. Access is going to be severely restricted. We need to preserve the social distancing. The lockers tend to be a place where girls gather, so we will be monitoring the hallways, ensuring that girls are using the lockers in the morning to drop off boots and coats and lunches. They might return to their locker midday to pick up their lunch, and then return to their locker at the end of the day to pick up their coat and jacket and boots to leave. But it will not be used for the standard things of saving their, putting their textbooks and that sort of thing. Now, we want to make sure that you're aware, especially in the high school, we will not be using locks on the lockers. So please do not send in any valuables with your daughter or have her store those in the lockers. And I return to the question that was raised earlier. Again, seniors will not be choosing their lockers this year. We will be setting up the lockers according to cohorts. So every other locker will be either a faith cohort or a hope cohort, a locker, to help with social distancing. Cheryl Ann, there is a question here, and I hope that you can answer it. It is, I'd like to alert you that the wording on the Mercy East announcement was a bit confusing. And this is a quote from that the person shared. Mercy East has larger classrooms than the middle school at Mercy Blossom, which will allow the middle school students to safely attend in-person instruction 5 days per week. It sounds as though it will be all in-person instruction.
Thanks, Marty. Yes, middle school will be attending 5 days of in-person instruction unless the family chooses fully remote instruction. And that those students that will be on fully remote instruction will be on a Google Meet through a live stream with their teacher, so they will be a part of the virtual instruction as they were in the springtime. So yes, the middle school will be attending 5 days of in-person instruction unless a family has chosen fully remote instruction.
Thanks, Cheryl Ann. The next question, I think, comes from maybe some lack of clarity earlier. The question is, how will there be lunch outside in poor weather conditions? I want to assure you that there is lunch space in the school. For the high school, lunch will be either in the cafeteria or in the gallery. We have set up desks that are 6 feet apart. In the middle school, lunch will be in the classroom. Lunch will be delivered to each of the classrooms. There will be an opportunity for girls to eat outside if the weather conditions are good, but we have some space inside the building. The next question, you said that everyone must have a mask with them at all times. What does that mean? Is everyone required to be wearing their mask at all times? So again, I think this is a lack of clarity in my explanation of masks. So masks must be worn on the buses and in the buildings at all times, except for lunch. Outside, the girls need to wear their masks whenever they are unable to maintain social distancing. So if they're getting off the bus and coming into the school, or getting out of their car and coming into the school, they need to be wearing their masks. If there is an event that's going on outside at which 6 foot distancing is possible, the girls still need to have their masks with them at all times. The next question, Will the students be trained in the daily health assessment app? When will it become available for use? Well, the health safety app is available. We have been using it. In fact, sadly, Pam Baker, our president, could not attend the graduation this year on August 8th because she failed the health screening app. I still think that that's an admirable example of leadership. She desperately wanted to be at graduation, but she knew that she was ill and she was not going to pass the app, so she didn't come. I hope that everyone will take seriously and honor the screening app and what we're asking of people. It is for all of our safeties. Now, we will be explaining how to use the app. We have, as we mentioned earlier, Donna Horn, I think, explained it just a little bit before, that on August 27th, we are having an all-parent orientation at 6 p.m. It is a virtual experience, and we'll be talking about the daily experiences that the girls will have, including how to use the screening app. The screening app is available, and we will be making it available to, we will be providing a link to it eventually. We encourage you to put it onto your phone so that it can be a daily routine and very easy. We are putting together other materials for the training and protocols. We'll have those things available on the website, including traffic patterns. We are changing our traffic pattern for arrival at Mercy Blossom. And for those who are unfamiliar with Mercy East, we have a traffic pattern map that we will be sharing. Those, in fact, may be, Mr. Carroll, maybe you can let me know, are those available on the website yet?
They are in the parent portal, the student parent portal area of our website, which I'm sure you are all familiar with. Under the start to school, back to school guide, I'm not sure, start of school guide packet, I think it's called. There are a host of links, and in there are forms, and as Dr. Kilbridge alluded to, the aerial maps with colored lines to show the new traffic patterns at both Mercy Blossom and Mercy East. And I also wanted to add, Dr. Kilbridge, as we are running short on time here, I wanted to say that the health screening app is also available on the student parent portal of the website, on the home page of the portal, right there in a button. So you have access to it right now. But as Dr. Kilbridge said, if you want to get a link to it on your phone, that might make it more convenient in the morning when you're heading out to school.
I have them up in front of me, so I'll read the question and the answer. And I'm actually going to pass one or two over to Mrs. Horn along the way. So Mrs. Horn, just be on your toes. So how will the advisement period work for students who are learning remotely? It will be an opportunity for a screen break for students. We have it built into the schedule, the advisement period. And if you are remote, you can simply take a break before your next class. We need to keep that in our schedule so that we can easily transition both from in-person to hybrid to online and back and forth throughout the year. The next question, will we be notified of any staff or students who test positive for COVID after school begins again? Not names, of course. Yes, we urge everyone to read our plan submitted to the state. There is this portion that explains this process with a little bit more of a nuanced explanation. But yes, we will be letting people know if there is a positive test. In fact, we will be closing the school and conducting contact tracing. So Mrs. Horn, can you answer a few of these questions? I'll ask them if you don't mind. My daughter received an email from a teacher today that her class will begin on Monday, August 24. Why are they beginning earlier than the scheduled first day?
This is part of our AP Jumpstart program, now in its second year, which is developed to better prepare our students for the AP exam. This will involve asynchronous learning to accommodate teacher and student summer schedules. Teachers will be available to students at times that they have arranged with their students. There is new learning occurring during this time. Students should check their emails for further communication from their teachers about getting started with their AP classes.
Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Here's another question. Could you please talk about how PE will be handled?
The PE teachers and I have been going over the guidelines that have been provided by the State Education Department for physical education. And our goal is to minimize the sharing of equipment. So the PE curriculum will be modified to include more indoor yoga, first aid and CPR, and other adjustments to the curriculum that require less sharing of equipment.
Thanks, Mrs. Horn. Here are some more questions that I'll be answering. Regarding the full course offerings, how can my child who will be learning remotely take advantage of an extended curriculum if she's already booked during the day with her regular course load? I'm unsure as to how she can access additional learning opportunities, for example, AP history. Well, we don't have additional learning opportunities. Unlike our many public schools, our remote students will be following all the courses in which they have been enrolled. So we expect that when you get your schedule, whether you are remote or in person, you will be getting the courses that you have signed up for and will be participating. There's a question here, will students have lockers this year? Yes, students will have lockers. Access to them will be severely restricted. The idea here is that students have a place to locate their boots, their coats, their lunches. So when they arrive at school, they can drop their things off, not return to their locker until lunchtime, retrieve a lunch if they brought one in, and then not again return to their locker until the end of the day. We want to minimize social gatherings. Out in that same note, another question came in regarding whether they can be decorated. No, the lockers will not be decorated. And in fact, we will be leaving locks off of the locker. So again, I mentioned this earlier, please make sure that your girls are not bringing in valuables and leaving them in their lockers. And lastly, we were asked this question yesterday, and I think it deserves an answer today. Will seniors be able to choose their lockers and when? And the answer is no. Seniors will not be choosing their lockers this year. We will be organizing in the high school lockers according to cohort so that we can keep social distancing at the lockers. The middle school is arranging its own plans for social distancing at the lockers. And we have one more question, or time, should I say, for one more question. There were a number that came in, and I want to be able to answer all of them, but I'll answer just this first one that we have typed in. So if a student is sick and they opt for the hybrid model and still attend classes online, are they still considered absent? And yes, they are considered absent. If your daughter is staying at home sick, this is a matter of logistics for our work, for accurate record keeping, and to ensure that families know where their daughters are.
Before we finish up this information session, we wanted to give Dr. Diodato, Dean of the Middle School, some time to talk about the wonderful news regarding Mercy East. Dr. D.
Thank you, Mr. Caro, for giving me this opportunity to talk about the wonderful news Mrs. Baker shared with us today about the extension of Mercy to our new building, Mercy East. First, I would especially like to thank Mrs. Baker, the Board of Trustees, the COVID Task Force Reentry Finance Committee, and Dr. Kilbridge for helping to make Mercy East a reality, an additional space for our girls in the middle school. I am so excited to be a part of this new journey that Mercy is embarking on this year. Mercy East is going to provide our middle school wildflowers new soil to cultivate their faith, knowledge, and strength to overcome any challenges that they may face this year. Our Mercy spirit will continue to grow at Mercy East and bring us closer together as a middle school family. Most of all, Mercy East will help us to continue to celebrate, with social distancing, of course, the many gifts and blessings we have in our lives. Stay tuned for more detailed information about Mercy East. I am looking forward to seeing your daughters soon. Thank you again, Mr. Caro.
And thank you, Dr. D. What a great way to wrap up this session. I do want to point out that we are continuing to accept new students at Mercy East, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. So if current Mercy parents know of other parents with children in another school district and who would like to come to Mercy for 5-day a week instruction, please reach out to our admissions department, admissions@mercyhs.com, or you can just go to our website, mercyhs.com, and navigate to the enrollment and admissions pages there. Folks, we are now at the end of our allotted time. I want to thank Mrs. Baker, Dr. Kilbridge, Dr. Diodato, Mrs. Whipple, Mrs. Horn, Dr. Maxwell, Dr. Davis, Mr. Yandak, and all of the faculty, staff, and community members for the many hours they have spent preparing Mercy for a safe return for our students in September. Their task is not yet done, but with the full support and input from our parents and guardians, we will safely return to school as a family and face the challenges ahead of us together. Thank you for your questions. We will continue to relay information to you via email and our website. Thanks for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.